The clock on his wrist costs more than my mother's funeral. That's what registers first, before the second man's hands even enter the picture. For years of carrying trays past this booth, and disappearing is the only trick I ever learned. Tonight the trick fails me. Already the pen is moving. Somewhere between the untouched second glass and the way the stranger at the bar keeps checking a mirror instead of his drink, the woman who waits tables quietly becomes someone who cannot look away. If you have ever known exactly what a room is about to become before anyone else in it does, and said nothing anyway, because saying something never once worked out for you, stay a while. This one's for the women who finally stopped staying quiet. Section 4, the back corner, is where the men who don't want to be seen come to be seen anyway. 11 months of working it have taught one lesson. Good tippers order slow, and dangerous ones order nothing at all. Julio Cardoso orders nothing at all. Since 7, he has sat in that booth. White suit, hands folded like a man at church, and every server in this restaurant knows better than to hover near him. Not because he's cruel. Because a quiet radiates off him that makes the whole room quiet with him. A buzz sounds in the apron pocket. Another notice from the loan servicer. 14 months since my mother died, and her debt still writes letters like she never left. The phone goes back in the pocket, unread past the balance. Too much is happening across the table from Julio. Laughter lands before the joke does. Cuffs get straightened every few seconds, like skin that doesn't fit anymore. That same rhythm lived in my brother Carmen for 3 years before his bookie came to collect. The over-talking, the glass he wouldn't drink from, the phone flipped face down again, and again like it might go off in his hand. Not my table. Not my problem. Or, so the story goes while water gets refilled 2 booths over, eyes anywhere but there. Then the door opens on a man who skips the host stand entirely. Straight to the bar he goes. Soda water gets ordered with no intention of drinking it. And rather than watch the bartender pour, his eyes fix on the mirror behind the bottles, angled dead center on booth 6. My stomach drops before my mind catches up to why. This has been seen before. Not this exactly, but the shape of it. Carmen sat across from men like this once, in a diner on Route 13, while a menu got pretended at from 2 booths down as he negotiated for his kneecaps. A setup has a shape from the outside, and that shape is known now in the hands before it's known in words. A water glass gets touched. Tapped. Twice. In the mirror, a hand disappears into a coat. No decision gets made to move. Legs simply carry their own verdict, straight to the terminal, where the code gets fumbled twice because the hands won't stop shaking. The check finally prints. A thick black marker gets grabbed from the host stand, not the thin pen because thin ink is easy to miss, and being missed isn't an option tonight. Block letters, pressed hard enough to feel the table underneath the paper. Hunter behind you. Deal gone wrong. Leave now. One hard underline follows, tearing the paper a little at the edge. There's a version of the next 10 seconds where this gets folded into an apron pocket, the shift gets finished, and home waits with a cold apartment and a stack of bills that won't care whether the brave thing got done or the smart one. That version already lost. It lost somewhere between the tap of the glass and the reach into the coat. No memory of choosing, just the check presenter now gripped like the only weapon available. Julio looks up before the table is reached. Men like him always know before arrival. I didn't call for the check, he says. His voice never rises. That's what makes it worse. Compliments of the house. The words come out steadier than they have any right to. The leather folder gets set down, held there a beat longer than necessary, one finger pressed flat against the cover, the way a hand presses over someone's mouth. His eyes drop to that finger, then lift to the face above it. For 1 second neither of us moves, and the whole dining room seems to hold something in its chest, a low murmur at other tables, a fork against china somewhere behind, the specific smell of candle wax and rosemary bread that will never again be smelled without an ugly kind of pulse attached to it. The folder opens. His face gets watched while he reads it. Fear seems like the obvious answer. Instead, something in him goes even stiller, which didn't seem possible, and his eyes lift with a question that isn't, "Is this true?" It's, "Who are you?"
Down, he says.
Not a request. Not loud. Certain, the way a closing door is certain.
No why gets asked.
Knees bend before the brain agrees to it, and that's when the first sound arrives, short, wrong. More air than gunshot, the kind of noise a silencer makes that has no business in a room full of white tablecloths. The booth cushion behind where his shoulder had been erupts in a small storm of stuffing and foam. Screaming starts somewhere to the left. No looking happens. Only the floor, hands over the head, the taste of dust and copper, and one clear thought before the room dissolves into noise. A stranger's life just got saved with an underline. The only version of a life once known just ended, though that isn't understood yet. The table is already in the air when the sound catches up. Wood against wood, glass against tile, a hurricane made of a single motion. Julio's arm sweeps out and the world goes sideways, silverware skating across marble, wine opening in the air like something struck instead of poured. Still on the floor where he placed me, my body decides for itself again, folding smaller, palms flat to the tile like pressing hard enough might hold the building still. The second shot sounds different than the first. Closer. Wet, somehow, though nothing visible has been hit yet. No scream comes. That gets noticed later. Silence instead of noise. The same silence that showed up the year my mother's hospital bills started arriving in envelopes that couldn't be opened without sitting down first. Some fear doesn't have a voice. It just has a body that stops asking permission. Julio's hand finds my wrist. Not gentle.
Certain. Now.
One word, and the feet are already moving before that's understood. Low and fast between overturned tables, past a woman in a green dress screaming into a napkin, past a man frozen mid-crouch with his phone still raised like he means to film his own death. The kitchen doors sit 20 feet away. They feel like 20 miles. Heat comes first through the threshold, a wall of it off the flat tops, grease and scorched garlic thick enough to taste. Then a different register of noise. Pans hitting the floor, a line cook shouting in Portuguese, the fire alarm starting its slow electronic wail overhead. Julio doesn't slow for any of it. A hand at the back steers a path between prep tables, never quite touching skin, like he's learned exactly how close he's allowed to be. Door, he says, and there it is. The emergency exit, red paint peeling at the edges, propped a careless inch by a rubber wedge some tired employee left there months ago and never removed. The alley hits, and the cold does something the gunfire didn't manage. Lungs seize. Wet cardboard and the specific mineral tang of Dover rain against old asphalt fill the air, a smell that will be known blind for the rest of a life, chosen by the body as the marker for this. A car idles already, black, unmarked, engine low, and patient like it's been waiting for exactly this. The back door opens before it's reached. Someone inside, a driver not worth looking at long enough to describe, and a hand lands on the crown of the head, the way a hand protects a child getting into a car, folding down into the seat. He climbs in behind. The door shuts. Obscene. How ordinary that sound is. A door closing. The most ordinary sound in the world, landing in the chest like something final. Slow, the car pulls away. Unhurried, like speed itself would be the giveaway. Two hands sit in my lap, perfectly still. That's the thing that finally breaks something loose. Not the shots, not the table, not the woman in green. Two hands, folded, not shaking at all, while somewhere behind the ribs something screams loud enough to drown out every other thought. Palms press flat against my thighs anyway. Checking. Distrusting the evidence. Julio watches the checking happen. Your hands, he says. Quiet. Not a question. What about them? They're steadier than your voice. The urge rises to tell him that's not a compliment, that it's the opposite, that hands which don't shake while everything else comes apart learned that trick somewhere ugly. Years of being the calm one while Carmen fell apart across a table taught this, signing the forms, making the calls, holding still so someone else in the room doesn't have to. The body learned long ago that shaking doesn't help. Shaking just makes people look away from what's actually wrong.
None of that gets said.
Comes with the job gets said instead, and the window becomes more interesting than his face. Streetlights sliding past too fast to focus on. He doesn't push. That part wasn't prepared for. A man who just watched someone try to kill him, letting a lie sit there unchallenged, like he already knows it's a lie and has decided not to spend the currency of calling it out.
Not yet.
Wait fills the silence that follows. Two people doing arithmetic on each other, trying to solve for who exactly just got into a car together. His attention moves without looking, some low current that doesn't ask for anything, which is somehow worse than if it had. A buzz sounds again. The loan servicer, relentless. Some absurd, stubborn corner of the mind actually considers checking it, as if the balance on a dead woman's debt still outranks the blood drying on a sleeve. It doesn't. That much is known. The phone gets checked anyway because old habits don't know when to stop being useful. His eyes drop to the screen before it disappears back into the pocket. Just a second. Long enough. That, he says, is not what I expected to see you looking at right now. You don't know what I look at. I'm learning fast. A turn comes that doesn't register as familiar. Past the edge of downtown, toward water smelled before it's seen. That particular Delaware Bay cold, brackish and metallic, nothing like the ocean postcards promise. The seat takes the weight of a head laid back against it. Eyes stay open. I am done making myself smaller. Where that thought came from isn't clear, uninvited, arriving fully formed like it's been waiting behind a door for years and finally found the handle. It lands somewhere true, though, somewhere under the fear, and it doesn't leave. If you've stayed this far, you already know what it feels like to keep your composure while everything around you falls apart. There's more waiting in the rooms, just past this one. Women who understand exactly what that costs. Iron gates appear ahead, parting without anyone visibly signaling them to. Whatever waited at home tonight, the cold apartment, the unopened mail, the version of a life kept quiet and safe and small, is already behind, shrinking in a window no longer being watched. The room given over for the night overlooks the bay, and liking it this much feels like a small betrayal. Third floor, glass instead of a full wall, water going black and silver under a sky that can't decide on rain. The apron sits already folded on a chair by the door, a receipt of who this used to be an hour ago, filed and put away. Nothing else in the room belongs to anyone. Too clean, too considered. A bed made with the kind of precision that means no one sleeps in it enough to mess it up. The edge of that bed holds this weight now, untouched by any hand. There's a version of tonight still counting exits, checking the window latch, the door, working out how far a person gets on foot from wherever this is. That version has been on duty a long time, since 19, since signing forms with a mother's name because she couldn't hold a pen anymore, since learning the particular quiet a hospital hallway demands at 2 a.m. She sits down inside now, finally, and lets someone else take the watch for a while. No decision gets made to let the guard down. It's just gone, noticed only after the fact. A knock comes soft. One knuckle, twice. Julio doesn't wait for an answer so much as he waits exactly long enough to have asked. The white suit is gone, sleeves rolled to the forearm, and blood sits on his cuff that isn't mine and isn't most likely his own. A small case comes with him, black leather, the kind doctors carried before doctors started carrying tablets instead. You're bleeding, he says. Not a question. His focus stays on one hand. Sure enough, there it is, a shallow cut along the base of the thumb, edges crusted dark, glass from the wine bottle or the window or God knows what else in that dining room. It went unfelt until now, which is more frightening than the cut itself. It's fine. It isn't infected yet. Let's keep it that way. No permission gets asked before he sits, on the edge of the bed, close enough that what he actually smells like reaches past the copper and cordite, cedar, and something colder underneath, like the air right before frost. The case opens. Antiseptic, gauze, a needle better left unlooked at. I can do it myself. I know. My hand gets taken anyway. Not rough. Not gentle either. Certain. The way he was certain in the alley, like tenderness for him isn't softness, it's precision. You've been doing everything yourself for a while. I'm not asking you to stop. I'm asking you to let this be the one thing you don't. The antiseptic stings, and no flinch follows, trained out of the body long ago in rooms that smelled exactly like this one. He notices, of course. His thumb moves once, slow, along the inside of the wrist, nowhere near the cut, like something else entirely is being checked for, and stillness follows that has nothing to do with pain. You didn't have to warn me, he says, not looking up from the hand in his. I know. Most people in that room would have gotten small, gotten under a table and stayed there. I got under a table. After. His eyes lift, dark in a way that doesn't reflect light so much as absorb it. You wrote the note first. An answer worth saying out loud doesn't come easily tonight, so silence gets offered instead, and he lets it stay. That's the part not prepared for. He doesn't fill the quiet the way most people rush to close a gap that makes them uncomfortable. He just sits inside it, winding gauze around a hand with a patience that has nothing to do with the wound. You take care of people, he says finally.
Quiet.
Like a fact he's been collecting evidence for all night, not an accusation. The way you moved through that dining room, the way you read the room before anyone else did, that's not instinct. That's practice. Comes with the job.
No.
The gauze ties off, his hand still loose around the one it's covering. That comes with years of being the only one paying attention. I'd guess you've been the reliable one in every room you've ever stood in. The one who notices the trouble before it starts and fixes it before anyone else has to. An urge rises to say he's wrong, to laugh it off, make it small, the way everything gets made small when it edges too close to true. What comes instead is nothing, just a stinging in the eyes, unexpected, fast, and the window becomes more interesting than his face, so he won't see it happen. Let someone else carry it for one night, he says. You don't have to hand it over. Just set it down. I am done making myself smaller. The thought returns from the car, uninvited, standing in the doorway of the mind like it's decided to move in. It stays unspoken, sitting there instead beside the warmth of his hand still loose around mine, and for one full breath, wanting exactly what's wanted happens without any math run on the cost. That's when a folder lands on the bed between us. Manila. Unmarked. His hand stays where it is even as the other sets it down, like contact matters when whatever's inside lands. There's something you need to see, he says, and the warmth from 30 seconds ago is already gone, replaced by the flat, careful tone of a man delivering news he's rehearsed how to say. Before you decide anything else about tonight. The folder opens, some stupid, stubborn belief, still intact that direct looking can brace a person for anything. The photograph is grainy. Streetlight and shadow, a dive bar sign half lit in the background. Two men in a booth. One unrecognizable. The other is Carmen. His hand extends across the table, an envelope changing hands, his shoulders hunched in the exact posture watched 100 times over unpaid debts and bad decisions. That posture is known. Half of it got raised, personally. The room goes very quiet, not the good kind of quiet from a minute ago, but the kind with the ringing underneath it, high and thin, like something just broke somewhere not yet visible. Julio. The voice that comes out is smaller than intended. Whose hand is that? He doesn't answer right away. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to answer, and that's how the truth of it lands. The folder closes. Opens again. Closes. As if a third look might produce a different photograph, a different hand, a different brother than the one protected from himself for 11 years. Carmen doesn't know people like that. The voice comes out flat, reciting facts the way an address gets recited to a dispatcher. He works at the marina. He fixes boat engines. He wouldn't. He owed $80,000 to a book that doesn't forgive debt, Julio says. Quiet. Not unkind. Worse than unkind. careful, like something is being handled that might cut him too. They offered to clear it. All he had to give them was my table, my security, the minute my guard would be down. He didn't know I'd be there.
No.
He didn't. That should help. It doesn't. The photograph stays in my lap, while the whole body goes strangely practical, the way grief moves before it's found the door, noticing the thread count of the blanket underneath, the specific angle of rain now hitting the glass, the faint throb still coming from a bandaged thumb. Anything but the actual shape of what just got learned. He sold you. Gets said out loud, testing the words to see if they sound less true spoken than thought. To save himself. And I was the collateral he didn't count on. Yes. Say it like it costs you something. Julio's jaw moves just once. It costs me a great deal to say it gently instead of the way I want to say it. That much is understood without further explanation. Men who threaten him have already been seen dealt with. A table flipped like it weighed nothing. Gunfire walked toward instead of away from. Whatever mercy sounds like in his world hasn't been heard yet. Where is he? Aurora. He catches himself, the wrong name half out of some old habit or someone else's story, and shakes his head once, sharp, like clearing water from an ear. Saisha. That isn't a question you want answered tonight. It's the only question I have. Stillness follows that isn't the good kind from 20 minutes ago. Two people stand on either side of a decision neither gets to make alone, and the quiet just sits there getting heavier, waiting for someone to move first. In my world, Julio says finally, a man who sells out my table doesn't get to keep breathing. That isn't cruelty. It's the only law that keeps men like Carmine's people from trying this again next week. He's not a soldier.
He's not one of your people.
He's a 26-year-old with a gambling problem and our mother's temper, and he has never once in his life thought more than 3 days ahead. That doesn't change what he did.
No.
The hands have started shaking now, finally. Hours too late, the way weather arrives after the front's already passed through. But it changes what you owe me. Julio goes very still. That stillness means something learned already. Not calm, control, a man holding a wall up with his bare hands. I don't owe you his life. You owe me a life debt. You said so yourself. In the car. You said I belong to your protection now. His eyes get held, the way Carmen's used to get held when actual hearing rather than waiting to talk was needed. Then protect what's mine. Not because he deserves it. Because I'm asking. Silence stretches long enough to hear my own pulse in it, and under that, the low sound of rain against glass, water finding every gap in the house the way grief finds every gap in a person. The words don't get taken back. A whole life spent making myself small enough to fit other people's rules ends tonight. Not for a man who tends a hand like something worth keeping, and then claims a brother's life isn't his to spare. You understand what you're asking, Julio says. Not a question. You're asking me to break a rule that has kept me alive for longer than you've been on this earth. For a man who nearly got me killed. I'm asking you to be the kind of powerful that doesn't need to prove it by killing someone's little brother. Something moves behind his eyes, not softness. Nothing so simple. Recalculation, maybe. A man used to being obeyed, discovering he doesn't actually want to be obeyed by this particular person. He looks over the way a person looks at a debt only now understood to be unpayable in the currency once planned. Carmine has him, he says finally, and the words land like a second photograph, worse than the first. We intercepted word an hour ago. He figured out who warned me. He took Carmen from the marina before the police even finished with the restaurant. The floor doesn't move, but something in the chest does, sudden and total. Like a held breath finally given up. Where? A warehouse off the water. It's a trap, Saisha. He wants me there. Your brother is the bait. Then you're not going without me. Absolutely not. He's my blood. The voice cracks on that word, and no attempt gets made to hide it. Done pretending steadiness is the same thing as strength. If something happens to him and I stayed behind in a house I've known for 4 hours, I will never forgive myself. And I don't think I'll ever forgive you either, and I don't think you want that. A long moment passes before any answer comes, the same math visible in his face that just ran through mine, a rule weighed against a person, and found, for maybe the first time in longer than can be imagined, that the person wins. You do exactly what I say, he says, low, each word set down like a stone. The second I say move, you move. No hesitation. I know how to follow instructions when they're worth following. His mouth almost does something that isn't quite a smile. He stands, offers a hand up, and it gets taken, not out of need, but because some part of me has decided, somewhere in this room overlooking a bay never chosen, that accepting a hand now, and then without keeping score, is allowed.
Get your coat, he says.
We're leaving in 5 minutes. The rain finds us before the warehouse does. It arrives before the building is even visible. That particular Delaware bay cold, brackish and metallic, soaking through a coat not built for this in the 5 steps between the car and whatever waits in the dark ahead. Neither, maybe, is the rest of me. But wanting to come here got said, and Julio doesn't remind anyone of that now. Walking half a step ahead, his body already angled between the open dark and mine. Floodlights inside cut hard shapes into the rain. Men move behind rusted shipping containers, positioning without being told, the choreography of people who have done this before and expect to do it again. Karma kneels in the center of it, hands zip-tied. A cut above the eyebrow that's stopped bleeding, gone dark and sticky in the light. Something reaches for him, anyway, the old habit, years of being the one who fixes things, and it takes real effort to keep both feet still instead of running straight into the open. Seisha. His voice cracks on the name, half hope, half apology, and hating how much comfort still wants to be offered even now. Even standing in the wreckage he built doesn't stop the wanting. A man steps out from behind the nearest container. Older than expected. Wet hair slicked back, a gun held loose and easy at his side like an extension of the hand rather than a weapon. Cardoso, he says, almost pleasant, like a drink is being met over instead of this. Brought company. Let him go, Carmine. Julio's voice carries without rising, the same flat certainty heard already in the dining room, the car, the room overlooking the bay. This is between you and me. The girl and her brother walk. Carmine's eyes move over, slow, cataloging. Waitress warned you. Waitress cost me 4 men and a decade of work. His mouth curves, not a smile so much as the shape of one. Waitress should probably watch what happens to people who get in my way. Touch her, Julio says, and nothing I do to you after will be quick. Carmine laughs, short and ugly, and raises the gun. Not toward Julio. The barrel finds me instead. Everything narrows to that single black point, rains suddenly loud against the skin, the specific smell of wet metal and diesel filling the mouth like it's already been swallowed. No time exists to be afraid. Fear needs a half second not given here. Julio moves faster than any I can track, a blur of white and motion, his body between the gun and mine before the sound even finishes, leaving the barrel. The shot cracks the air apart. He doesn't fall right away. He staggers, one hand going to shoulder, dark blooming fast through white fabric, and for one endless second he's still standing, still between the danger and me, refusing to give the ground even as his knees start to understand what his body already knows. Then he goes down. The wet concrete is already soaking through both knees before any decision gets made to kneel, hands finding his shoulder on instinct, pressing hard the way pressure gets applied by someone who's spent a lifetime learning exactly how much a wound needs and exactly how much a person can bear to give. Stay with me. The voice comes out steady. Too steady. The kind of steady perfected over years for rooms just like this one, hospital hallways, kitchen tables where someone loved was falling apart and needed the calm to hold. Look at me. Not the ceiling.
Me.
His eyes find mine, dark and losing focus at the edges, and something in them almost looks like relief, like being caught, finally, by someone whose hands don't shake. Chaos breaks open around us, shouting, the heavy crack of return fire from somewhere above, Carmine's voice going from smug to panicked in the space of a breath. No looking up happens to see who's shooting or why. There isn't room for anything except blood moving warm and fast between the fingers and the man bleeding out under two hands because he stepped in front of a bullet meant for someone else. You didn't have to do that. Comes out furious instead of grateful, because some part of this is screaming, and this is the only door it has to leave through. Yes, he manages, teeth gritted. I did. Why? His hand comes up, slow, and covers mine where it's pressed against his shoulder, not moving it, just holding it there like being steadied by the same hands doing the steadying is what's needed most. Because you're the first thing in longer than you'd believe, he says, each word costing him something that I wasn't willing to lose. No answer comes. None can. My throat has closed around something too large to speak past, and instead the pressing continues, harder, closer, until the rain and his blood and a ruined coat become the only things that exist. Somewhere behind, Carmen's voice shouts a name, alive, safe, freed by hands that aren't mine. No looking back happens yet. There will be time for a brother later, for the reckoning still owed between us, for the debt that started all of this. Right now there is only this, the specific weight of a man's head against a knee, the particular way rain sounds different landing on someone who might not get back up, and two hands, finally, doing something other than holding everyone else together while falling apart quietly underneath. I am done making myself smaller. That thought has come twice tonight already, in a car and in a room overlooking water. It's fully understood now, kneeling in the mud with blood on hands that aren't my own, that being needed isn't the same thing as being small, and that a woman who finally lets herself be chosen doesn't lose herself in the choosing. She just, for the first time in longer than she can name, stops carrying it alone. Stay with me, gets said again, quieter now, and the holding on continues. The gunfire stops before it's noticed stopping. That's how deep the work of keeping him alive goes. Pressure, count, breathe, pressure again, that the world outside his shoulder has gone quiet without permission being asked. Someone shouts orders somewhere behind. Carmine's voice has disappeared entirely, and no question gets asked about what that means. There isn't room for anything that isn't the man bleeding under two hands. Julio. His name comes out rough, scraped from somewhere low in the chest. Eyes on me, not the sky. He drags them back to my face. Effort, real effort, like lifting something heavy. Bossy, he manages, and even now, even here, a ghost of something wry lives in it, and the cost of giving that must be immense. Rocco arrives suddenly, kneeling on his other side, pressing a jacket hard against the wound with the practiced calm of a man who's done this before for this exact person. Someone else cuts Carmen loose. My brother's voice, hoarse, says my name like a question he's afraid to finish asking. No movement happens toward him yet. There's a version of tonight, the old version, the reflex a whole life has run on, where a split happens right now, right down the middle. Half for Carmen, checking his ribs, wiping the blood from his eyebrow, making sure the one who caused this gets comforted first, because that's what the reliable one does. She doesn't ask who's holding her up while she holds everyone else. Staying put wins instead. The hands stay on Julio's shoulder. That's the contradiction worth sitting with rather than examining too closely. Some old, tired part of me still wants to get up and go be useful to a brother, the way usefulness has been offered to him for 11 years, and the getting up doesn't happen. That part gets to want it. It also gets to lose. Carmen's alive, gets said instead, to Julio, because he needs to hear it as much as a brother needs comforting. He's alive. You did that. You did that, he corrects, breath thin. I just got in the way of a bullet. That's not nothing.
No.
His hand finds mine again on his shoulder, weaker than before but still certain. It isn't. They get him into the car eventually, Rocco and another man unknown by name, and climbing in after happens without being asked, without anyone thinking to say otherwise. The base slides past the window, black water under a sky just starting to thin toward gray, and somewhere in that stretch of road comes the understanding that morning is coming whether readiness has arrived or not. Consciousness never leaves him. The whole ride is spent watching for it, the way a stove burner gets watched when certainty about turning it off is missing. His eyes stay open, fixed mostly on the face across from him, like being tethered to the car instead of whatever's on the other side of unconsciousness depends on it. At the house, people who know gunshot wounds better than anyone here get let do their work, and standing happens in the doorway of that same room overlooking the bay, while a doctor, who doesn't ask questions, works with quiet, efficient hands. The doorway doesn't get left, not once. When it's done, stitched, bandaged, color starting to come back into him, the room empties, and it's just the two of us again, the rain finally slowing outside the window, the light going the particular gray of a morning that hasn't decided yet what kind of day it's going to be. The edge of the bed holds this weight now. Not close. Close enough. You should sleep, Get said. I will. His eyes don't close. After. After what? After you tell me what you're deciding right now. I can see you deciding something. You've had the same look since the car. He's right, and that's an irritating thing to admit, and the words come anyway because a promise got made in a different room hours ago. That swallowing things to keep the peace was finished for good. I'm not staying because I owe you my life. The words come slow, deliberate. And I'm not staying because you saved Carmen, or because you took a bullet for me, or because you're... A hand gestures at him. All of him, the weight of what he is in this city. Whatever this is. If I stay, it's not a debt getting paid off. It's not you claiming something. His eyes get held, the way Carmen's got held, the way my own reflection got held some mornings when remembering I was still in there mattered. If I stay, it's because you want me standing next to you, not folded in under you. An equal, not a possession with better security. The room goes still in the way it goes still right before something true gets said. And if I can't offer that, he says slowly, you walk. I walk. Tonight. And you let me. He weighs it, not the way Carmen's life got weighed in that room overlooking the bay, but something older, something never weighed before, most likely because no one has probably ever asked him this question and meant it. A century of men who wanted from him. Not one, maybe, who asked for something back in equal measure. There's never been an equal in this house, he says finally. Quiet. Almost like a confession. My whole life has been built on people beneath me or people I answer to. I don't know what standing beside someone looks like. Then we find out. Words don't come first as his answer. His hand reaches instead for mine, not the bandaged one, the other, and holds it the way something gets held once the decision not to let go has been made. No urgency in it, just certainty, the same certainty from the alley, from the car, from every moment tonight where exactly what he meant got said without wasting breath on decoration. Say Isha, he says, and the name in his mouth sounds different than it did a few hours ago, less like a stranger learning it, more like a man who intends to use it for a long time.
Stay.
Not as mine. Beside me. No tears come. Enough of those have been spent on other people's messes to know the difference between grief tears and this. Something warmer, something that doesn't need to fall to be felt. Okay, Get said. Outside, the sky over the bay finally decides what kind of morning this is going to be, and chooses light. There's a place for women who have carried more than their share, and are only now learning what it feels like to be carried back. This is one of those stories. It won't be the last one waiting for you here.